Children, do you know who he is? He is the Happy Prince. He is covered with gold. The statue had sapphires for his eyes and a ruby in his sword. So today we are going to know about the Happy Prince. Children, do you know who wrote this story? It is a story by Oscar Wilde, the great short story writer. You have another beautiful story, The Model Millionaire, in class 11 next year. He also wrote The Selfish Giant, which also you may have read.
Oscar Wilde. Some of his major works are The Model Millionaire, The Nightingale and the Rose, The Selfish Giant.
You got acquainted with the famous works of Oscar Wilde. He is considered a great writer. Probably after going through the story, The Happy Prince, you will also feel the same way. Let's take up the first paragraph of the story.
High above the city, on a tall column, stood the statue of the Happy Prince. He was gilded all over with thin leaves of fine gold. For eyes, he had two bright sapphires, and a large red ruby glowed on his sword hilt. Children, you came across some words in this passage. Let's understand their meanings. Column, pillar usually of circular section with a base and capital. Gilded. You have all seen the Golden Temple and know how it is covered with gold plates, sheets. This is called gilded. Sapphire. Precious blue stone called neelam. Ruby. A red precious stone called lal in Punjabi. Hilt. This is a sword and its handle is called a hilt.
After going through the passage and looking at the picture, let me test you if you can answer these questions. The first one is, where did the Happy Prince stand? The answer to this is, high above the city, on a tall column, stood the statue of the Happy Prince. The second is, how was the statue decorated? The answer is, the statue was gilded all over with gold leaves, had sapphires for eyes, and a ruby on the hilt of his sword. Now we move ahead in the story.
The swallow says, I am going to Egypt to my friends. I have a golden bedroom, he said softly. I will put up there, he cried. It is a fine position with plenty of fresh air. So he alighted just between the feet of the Happy Prince. As he looked around, and he prepared to go to sleep, and was putting his head under his wing, a large drop of water fell on him. What a curious thing, he cried. There is not a single cloud in the sky. The stars are quite clear and bright, and yet it is raining. The swallow says, what is the use of a statue if it cannot keep the rain off? I must look for a good chimney pot and it determined to fly away. But before he had opened his wings, a third drop fell and looked up and saw, what did he see? So, when the swallow looked up, tears were filled in the eyes of the happy prince, and the swallow asked,
Who are you?
I am the happy prince.
Why are you weeping then? You have quite drenched me.
Here are a few questions related to the shown sequence of the story. The first one is, where was the swallow going? The answer is, the swallow was going to Egypt to be with his friends. The next question is, why did the swallow put up between the feet of the happy prince? The swallow put up between the feet of the happy prince because it was a fine place with a lot of fresh air. The next is, where were the drops of water coming from? The answer is, the drops of water were coming from the eyes of the happy prince. He also told further that,
when I was alive and had a human heart,